He collapsed from hunger at school. What his teacher did next shocked everyone. Welcome to our storytelling channel, where every day brings you a tale that touches the heart. If this story moved you, let us know in the comments. And don't forget to tell us where in the world you're watching from. We love seeing how far these stories travel. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you won't miss tomorrow's special episode, 1. That might just change the way you see kindness forever. Ethan Parker was only 13 years old when his world changed forever. He lived with his mother, Amanda, and his older sister in a modest 3-story home on the outskirts of Houston, Texas. The house, though small and aging, was filled with the memories of a happier time, a time when Ethan's father was still alive. His father, Daniel Parker, had been the backbone of the family. At 38, he was a hard-working man employed by a private construction firm. He wasn't wealthy, but he was steady, dependable, and full of dreams for his family. He had built their house with his own hands, brick by brick, believing it would be a sanctuary for them for years to come. But life has a way of unraveling the things we take for granted. One morning, without warning, Daniel collapsed on his way to work. A sudden stroke took him from his family before anyone could say goodbye. The shock was paralyzing. Amanda, only 29 at the time, found herself suddenly widowed, with 2 children to care for and no clear path forward. The financial burden hit almost immediately. The company Daniel had worked for issued a one-time death benefit of just $2,000, a gesture that barely covered the funeral expenses. After that, there was nothing. No pension, no life insurance, no savings to fall back on. The weight of survival fell squarely on Amanda's shoulders. Family and friends who once shared holidays and laughter slowly faded away. Phone calls stopped. Visits became rare. People were busy with their own lives, and Amanda's quiet struggle seemed invisible to them. In times of crisis, the truth becomes clear. Sometimes even relatives become strangers. And that's exactly what happened to the Parkers. Amanda did her best to hold everything together. She had always been a nurturing, devoted wife and mother, but now she had to become much more: provider, protector, and problem solver all at once. Each day she woke up with a heart full of sorrow and a mind racing with worry. How would she feed her children? How would she keep the lights on? How long could they hold on to the home Daniel built? The $2,000 they received dwindled fast. Groceries, utility bills, school fees, repairs, it all piled up. Amanda sold furniture, cut every possible expense, and learned to stretch every dollar. But despite her sacrifices, within 10 months, the money was gone. There was no longer a choice. Amanda had to leave the house during the day and find work, even if it meant scrubbing floors or working multiple jobs. Her children needed her, but they also needed food, clothes, and a future. This was the beginning of their hardest chapter, a period of quiet desperation, where the world seemed indifferent to their pain. But it was also the chapter that would reveal something extraordinary, how even in the darkest of times the smallest light can change everything. And for Ethan, that light was about to appear. The days that followed Amanda's decision to find work were filled with exhaustion and silent tears. She landed a job as a house cleaner, waking up before sunrise and returning home long after dark. Sometimes she'd work in 3 different homes a day, just to scrape together enough for rent, food, and school supplies. But even with 3 jobs, the math never added up. Meanwhile, Ethan was doing his best to carry on like any other 13-year-old. He still wore the same worn-out sneakers from last year and carried a backpack with a broken zipper. But what weighed on him more than his old clothes was the hunger gnawing at his stomach, a quiet pain that became louder with each passing day. There were times when dinner was just tap water and stale crackers. Amanda always told her kids she had already eaten, even when she hadn't. And Ethan, wise beyond his years, pretended to believe her. He didn't complain. He just nodded and pushed through another night with an empty belly. By the end of the week, the hunger became unbearable. Ethan hadn't eaten in nearly 2 full days. His legs felt weak, his vision blurry, and his thoughts scattered. At school, He struggled to stay awake. His classmates laughed and played like nothing had changed, but to Ethan everything had. He didn't see math problems on the board. He saw plates of food. He didn't hear his teacher's voice. He heard the grumbling in his stomach. Then, during third period, it happened. Ethan collapsed. One moment he was trying to copy notes from the board, and the next, his pencil dropped to the floor. His body followed. A quiet gasp filled the classroom. For a moment, everything went still. Mr. Brandon Hayes, Ethan's homeroom teacher, rushed over. He'd noticed the boy growing pale and thin over the last few weeks, but now it was undeniable. Kneeling beside Ethan, he gently shook his shoulder. "Ethan, hey, can you hear me, buddy?" The boy's eyelids fluttered open. "I'm fine, sir," he whispered, his voice barely audible. But Mr. Hayes wasn't convinced. "No, you're not. Tell me the truth." Ethan hesitated, then finally admitted, "We haven't eaten in 2 days." Those 7 words hit Mr. Hayes. Like a punch to the gut, without another word, he motioned for the school custodian and handed him a $10 bill. "Go to the deli. Get him something. Anything. Fast." 10 minutes later, the custodian returned with a sandwich and a cold soda. Mr. Hayes placed the food in front of Ethan and said softly, "Eat. You need your strength." Ethan's hands trembled as he unwrapped the sandwich. The first bite felt like life returning to his body. Tears welled up in his eyes, not just from hunger, but from the overwhelming feeling that, for once, someone saw him. Really saw him. Hayes didn't say much. He just watched the boy eat, then leaned in and said, "After school, come to my office. We're going to figure this out together." That moment marked the beginning of a bond that would change both their lives forever. After the final bell rang, Ethan made his way to Mr. Hayes' office, still feeling lightheaded, but stronger than he had in days. The sandwich had helped, but the emotions weighed heavier than ever. His mind spun with questions. Was he in trouble? Was someone going to report them? Would his mother find out? Mr. Hayes sat behind his desk, calm and composed. When Ethan stepped inside, he gave the boy a warm nod. "Have a seat, son." Ethan obeyed, nervously fidgeting with the sleeves of his hoodie. Mr. Hayes didn't speak right away. Instead, he opened a drawer, pulled out a notepad, and quietly began writing. "I'm not calling child services," he said finally, breaking the silence. "I just want to help. That's it." Ethan looked up, stunned. "I've seen the signs for weeks," Mr. Hayes continued. "You've been losing weight, falling asleep in class, zoning out. But today I knew I had to step in." Ethan's throat tightened. His instincts told him to say thank you and leave. But something about Mr. Hayes' voice, steady and sincere, made him stay. "Here's what we're going to do," Mr. Hayes said, sliding the notepad aside. "I'm taking you to the market. We're getting groceries for your family, enough to last you through the month." Ethan's eyes widened. "But we don't have money to pay you back." "I'm not asking for it back," Mr. Hayes said simply. "This is what people do when they care." That evening, Ethan found himself on the back of Mr. Hayes' motorcycle, holding on tightly as they zipped through the streets of Houston. It felt surreal. The wind on his face, the headlights reflecting off windows, and the growing realization that someone outside his family was fighting for him. They stopped at a local grocery store. Mr. Hayes grabbed a cart and started loading it. Bags of rice, flour, canned beans, peanut butter, eggs, milk, even fresh fruit. Ethan watched in silence, his heart pounding. He didn't know how to say thank you without bursting into tears. But Mr. Hayes wasn't done. When they reached Ethan's house, Amanda wasn't home yet. She often worked late, sometimes past midnight. Mr. Hayes helped Ethan carry the bags inside, placing everything neatly on the kitchen counter. "I want you to promise me one thing," he said, turning to the boy. "Focus on school. Don't worry about food anymore. I'll make sure you're taken care of. You just focus on your future." Ethan nodded, eyes glassy. "Yes, sir." From that day on, Mr. Hayes became more than just a teacher. He became a lifeline. Every month, like clockwork, he brought groceries. He even spoke to the school administration to get Ethan's unpaid lunch fees waived and made sure his school supplies were covered. Amanda was shocked when she returned home to a kitchen full of food. When Ethan explained, she broke down in tears. For the first time in months, she felt seen, supported, and not alone. And Ethan? He went to bed that night with a full stomach and a heart full of something he hadn't felt in a long time: hope. With Mr. Hayes' unwavering support, something began to shift inside Ethan. He no longer walked into school with his head down or sat in class with an empty stomach. There was food in the kitchen now. There was warmth in the home. For the first time in a long time, there was stability. But what changed most wasn't on the outside. It was within him. Ethan started to believe in himself. He studied harder, asked more questions, and stayed after school for tutoring. His grades, once slipping from exhaustion and hunger, began to rise. Teachers noticed the difference. He wasn't just staying awake. He was excelling. From science projects to history essays, Ethan put his whole heart into his education, because now he had a reason to believe that maybe, just maybe, he had a future worth fighting for. Mr. Hayes didn't just drop off groceries. He checked, weekly, encouraged Ethan after every test, and even brought him second-hand books to read beyond the classroom material. Amanda was deeply moved. She'd never met anyone who gave so much without asking for anything in return. Her son was becoming someone new, stronger, more confident, more determined. Then, one morning, an envelope arrived in the mail. It was thick, with a university seal stamped on the front. Ethan stared at it for a long time before opening it. His hands shook. It was a full scholarship. A prestigious university in California had accepted him. Tuition, housing, meals, all covered. Everything, all of it. The letter slipped from his hands as tears filled his eyes. He ran to his mother, who was folding laundry in the living room, and held the paper out with trembling fingers. Amanda read the letter slowly. When she reached the end, she looked up at her son, stunned. Her voice cracked. "You did it, baby." They embraced for what felt like forever, crying, laughing, overwhelmed. The boy who once collapsed from hunger was now preparing to fly across the country for a future no one thought was possible. Mr. Hayes was the first person Ethan called. There was silence on the line when Ethan told him the news. Then finally a proud voice. "I always knew you had it in you." The months that followed were a blur of preparation. Shopping for suitcases, filling out paperwork, saying goodbye to old routines. Amanda worked overtime to save for a small care package to send with her son. She packed it with photos, snacks, and a handwritten letter that said, "No matter where you go, you'll always be my pride." When the day of departure arrived, Ethan stood at the airport with tears in his eyes. He hugged his mother and sister tight, promising to make them proud. As he boarded the plane, he looked back one last time, not with fear, but with determination, because he wasn't just flying to college. He was flying toward the life that his mother had dreamed of, and that Mr. Hayes had helped him believe he could reach. College life was everything Ethan had imagined, and more. The campus buzzed with opportunity. The classrooms were filled with passionate professors, and the dorm was warm, clean, and stocked with food. For the first time in years, Ethan didn't have to worry about where his next meal would come from, or whether the lights would stay on. He could finally breathe. But even in the excitement of this new chapter, Ethan never forgot where he came from, or who had helped him get there. Every phone call home ended with, "Tell Mr. Hayes I said thank you." And every good grade, every new milestone, carried a silent prayer of gratitude for the man who fed him when no one else noticed he was starving. After 4 years of relentless hard work, Ethan graduated at the top of his class. He was offered a position as a general manager at a rising tech firm in Seattle, with a starting salary that would have once seemed impossible, $45,000 a year, with benefits and housing assistance. It was a dream come true. Before moving for the job, Ethan returned home to visit his mom. She was doing better now. His sister had finished college, Amanda had reduced her work hours, and the house no longer echoed with fear. But something was missing. Someone, actually. "Have you seen Mr. Hayes lately?" Ethan asked. Amanda's expression shifted. She hesitated. "He stopped teaching last year. I heard he's been sick." The words hit Ethan like ice. He didn't wait another second. The next morning, he tracked down Mr. Hayes' last known address, grabbed 2 bags of groceries, and showed up at the door. The man who had once been strong and full of purpose now looked thinner, paler. Still, his eyes lit up when he saw Ethan. "Look at you," Mr. Hayes whispered, voice hoarse. "You made it." Ethan hugged him tight. "Because of you." Mr. Hayes had been tutoring part-time to get by, but his health was failing. Ethan didn't hesitate. He arranged for medical care, delivered food every week, and ensured he never went without again, just like Mr. Hayes had done for him. Weeks turned into months, and a beautiful friendship deepened. During one of their visits, Ethan met Mr. Hayes' daughter, Maya, a kind-hearted young woman who had just finished her teaching degree. She had inherited her father's strength and warmth, and something about her felt like home. Their friendship blossomed quickly. Ethan would stop by more often, Maya would make tea, and over time, something gentle turned into something real. Eventually, Ethan sat across from Mr. Hayes, heart-pounding, and asked for Maya's hand in marriage. Tears welled in the old teacher's eyes. "You were my student," he said, smiling. "Now you're my family." The wedding was small, beautiful, and full of love. Ethan had come full circle, not just surviving, but thriving. And through it all, he carried forward the lesson Mr. Hayes had taught him. Kindness can change a life. And when you're shown love, the best way to honor it is to pass it on. Dear friends, after hearing Ethan's journey, from hunger and despair to hope, success, and ultimately love, what are your thoughts? Have you ever experienced or witnessed a moment when someone's kindness completely changed a life? We truly believe that stories like this don't just entertain. They remind us of what truly matters: compassion, resilience, and the quiet heroes among us. If this story touched your heart, we would love to hear from you in the comments. Tell us where you're watching from, and share your favorite part of the story. Did a particular moment make you emotional? Did Mr. Hayes remind you of a mentor from your own life? Your feedback means the world to us. By commenting, you're not only joining our community, you're also helping spread stories that inspire kindness and change. And if you know someone who needs to hear this today, share it with them. Let's keep the cycle of compassion going. One story, one person, one act of kindness at a time. We read every comment with care and gratitude. So go ahead, drop your thoughts below.